In this video, we will learn how to find an area of a rectangle and square. Let's have a rectangle and let's name it rectangle A. A rectangle has opposite sides equal. So let's consider the length of this rectangle is 3 centimeters and width is 2 centimeters. Now we want to find its area. So let's draw lines to divide this rectangle into small squares with all sides of 1 centimeter. Thus we got a grid with each square of 1 square centimeter. We already know how to find the area using the grid method by counting all the grid squares inside the shape. Then to find the area of rectangle A, we will count all the grid squares inside it. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 grid squares of 1 square centimeter inside rectangle A. Therefore, area of rectangle A is 6 square centimeters and we write it as 6 centimeter square. Now let's have one more rectangle with the length 4 meters and width 3 meters and name it rectangle B. Once again, let's draw lines to divide this rectangle into small squares with all sides of 1 meter. Thus, we got a grid with each square of 1 square meter. So to find the area of rectangle B, we will count all the grid squares inside it. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12 grid squares of 1 square meter inside rectangle B. Hence its area is 12 square meters and we write it as 12 meter square. Now grid method is an easy way of learning the concept of an area. However, we cannot keep counting the grid squares all the time to find the area. Hence, we use formulas to find the area of such two-dimensional shapes. Then you might ask, what is the formula to find the area of a rectangle? Let's see. Now notice inside rectangle A, there are 2 rows of 3 grid squares, which are 1 square centimeter. Here is the first row and this is the second row. That means we can write area of rectangle A as 2 groups of 3 grid squares, which means 2 times 3 that equals 6. Or we can say 3 columns of 2 grid squares of 1 square centimeter. Here is the first column, this is the second column and this is the third column. Hence, we can also write the area of rectangle A as 3 groups of 2 grid squares, which means 3 times 2, which equals 6. 2 times 3 or 3 times 2 is the same thing and gives the same answer 6. But notice the length of rectangle A is 3 centimeters and width is 2 centimeters. And 3 centimeters times 2 centimeters equals 6 centimeter square. Thus, we got the same answer 6 centimeter square by counting the grid squares inside the rectangle and by multiplying its length and width. That means if we multiply the length and width of a rectangle, we will get its area. But you might say, can we say the same thing for rectangle B? Let's check. For rectangle B, there are 4 rows of 3 grid squares of 1 square meter. Here is the first row, this is the second row, this is the third row, and this is the fourth row. That means we can write area of rectangle B as 4 groups of 3 grid squares, which means 4 times 3, which equals 12. Or we can say there are 3 columns of 4 grid squares of 1 square meter. Here is the first column, this is the second column, and this is the third column. So we can write 3 groups of 4 grid squares, which means 3 times 4, which equals 12. 4 times 3 or 3 times 4 is the same thing and gives the same answer, 12. Once again notice the length of rectangle B is 4 meters and width is 3 meters. And 4 meters times 3 meters equals 12 meters square. So again we got the same answer, 12 meters square, by counting the grid squares inside rectangle B and by multiplying its length and width. Hence we can say if we multiply the length and width of a rectangle, we will get its area. Therefore we can conclude that the area of a rectangle is length times width. Okay, now here we have square C with one side's length of 3 centimeters and we want to find its area. But what is the formula for calculating the area of a square? Now basically, squares are rectangles. Therefore, we can use the same formula to find their area. However, for a square, we can multiply one side's length by itself. Because for a square, length and width are always the same as all its sides are of same length. So the formula for finding the area of a square is length times length. Hence the area of square C is 3 centimeters times 3 centimeters equals 9 centimeters square. Let's verify if our answer is correct using the grid method. So we drew a grid with each square of 1 square centimeter. Let's count the grid squares inside this square. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 grid squares inside square C. Hence the area of square C is 9 square centimeters or 9 centimeter square. So the answer is same as we got using the formula.